Tyler.
Rhonda.
Great to meet you,
Rhonda.
Rhonda.
Come on in.
Oh, thank you for having me.
My name is Ronda Rousey, and Tyler might recognize me as being the first women's UFC champion.
This is a pretty cool location.
It is. It's real special to me. We are at the Redwood Bar and Grill. This is an authentic pirate bar. I got offered a job at this bar at the 2008 Olympics. When I was first working here, I was moving away from being an Olympic athlete and on to the unknown. And I'm now moving on to the unknown again, and I would appreciate some guidance.
Sometimes objects will actually help, I think, kind of bring in a person or make a connection. So, do you have any objects?
Yes, I
cool.
do.
All right, so we can just put it right here, and we'll see what we do. Cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a minute, scribble, get in the zone. We'll see if anything pops in. There's a man that comes through real heavily, and he's just kind of showing me basically my symbol for getting to live like closer to middle age, but not really reaching my elderly age. They are for some reason having me talk about, like on Dad's side, there's this individual who would have really been heavily involved in like fishing, and this keeps coming in as like making fishing trips, doing the fishing, it's coming in. Would anyone connected on Dad's side of family have any connections to this object? Perfect. There was this reference to a lot of emotional instability. Sometimes if people end their lives or take their own life, obviously that can sometimes kind of contribute, but they're having me kind of talk about this feeling of like, I was unwell before I passed. It just feels really, like, tragic is kind of the way I would describe it. So, they're having me talk about the intending to go to a car. So, I have to figure out what this is, but there's a whole situation where someone, it's tricky. So this isn't like car accident thing, it's not that. But they're talking about a vehicle, but putting this around someone's like last moments, one's life. It feels weird. Does that mean anything?
Yeah, well, my dad, he had broke his back, and he happened to have a really rare blood disorder that kept him from healing. Similar to hemophilia, it doesn't allow you to clot your blood. And so he was slowly, for years, getting platelet transfusions and trying to put rods in his back, everything. And eventually they said, you're gonna be a paraplegic and then a quadriplegic, and then you're gonna die. And there's nothing we can do about it. And so my dad decided to take matters in his own hands because he was in a huge amount of pain every day. He couldn't work anymore. He felt like he was just a drag on the family. And he was very much like a person who takes care of everyone. And he drove his car out and he put a hose in the exhaust.
I'm sorry.
I was 8 years old. I remember that when he passed, I would just try to just tell myself that he was on a business trip and he'd be back. And that was my way to cope with it. Sorry, I don't want to get into it too much. But I wouldn't be crying unless he was awesome. He was the best.
I'm so sorry they had to experience that.
He was a really tough guy, though. Like, I never knew. Like, the whole time he was sick, he never let us know.
Right.
We didn't know he was dying. He kept it a secret until the end.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm sure he didn't want to be a burden. And
Yeah. Well, he said he didn't want our last memories of him to be in a bed with tubes running in and out of him. So, you know, I've never resented anything.
it's a very incredibly difficult point to be in life, but he comes across completely, like there's a lightness in the way that this feels.
I just wish I knew him as a man and not just as my dad, you know? Like, now that I've got older, I have like the pleasure and the honor of being able to know my mom as a woman. And I wish I could have had that with my dad. But, you know, that's what I have, and I'm happy for what I got. I got to have 8 years of amazing.
What a cool object.
It was a jewelry box for my dad, yeah.
Wow.
And so that was the lid of it.
Wow.
But yeah, the whole box didn't survive, but the lid did. I mean, we don't have very many things left from my dad, but I remember my dad getting this box. And when he passed, I would always keep like my most valuable little knickknacks, you know, and of course, if you're an 8-year-old kid, your most valuable knickknacks is like a rock that you thought looked cool. I just bring up memories of him all the time so I don't forget them, because I don't want them to fade.
I'm gonna keep going with this. Your dad's having me talk about the timing of his death, and then for some reason your dad's having me talk about you as a younger person. And there's this emphasis on learning, and it's like this death happens, and the feeling is like still having to kind of get past this. They're trying to give me a message, and I can't make it change. Earlier, there was the fishing reference for some reason. I don't know why they're putting an emphasis on this. Did that mean anything in context?
Like you said about, you know, passing at an inopportune time, I was overcoming a speech problem. I had a difficult birth. I had the umbilical cord around my neck and had like delayed speech development. I didn't really start talking until I was 6. And to get me to talk, the therapist said, make me go do stuff, but come do things. So my dad would take me fishing. And then one of the stories my mom likes telling me is that it was raining cats and dogs outside. And I was like in the living room, like fishing pool, everything. And they're like, Ronnie, what are you doing? And the only words that I could say were, I'm going fishing. And like, yeah, that was something we would do all the time. Yeah, it was a pretty bad time. I ended up homeschooling for a while after that because I really couldn't deal with it very well. All those changes at that time.
I think, you know, when they come through, they bring those things up to just wanting their loved ones to know that they're aware of it. And there's this feeling of like, an overruling feeling of like you being able to still like grin and bear it and get through and toughen up and move forward despite dealing with these really like tragic, sad situations. But there's such an awareness of, oh my God, look, I realize now what she was having to deal with, what she was having to handle and all of the responsibilities. And there's a feeling of an apology with that, so just please know that.
When I was younger, they thought I had autism. I was only walking on my tiptoes. I wasn't speaking. Like, everybody was really worried. And my dad would always be like, oh, no, don't worry about it. She's a sleeper. She'll show everybody. And I'd gone from not speaking to being, like, the star of our school play. I was actually really smart, and I just couldn't talk. And I'd become, like, really active in doing sports and stuff like that because that was a thing that me and my dad did. And so when he passed, I did judo with the intention of winning the Olympics in it because he told me I could.
Well, I've had a great time here at this bar, but I'm curious to know what you do for a living.
I was an Olympic medalist in judo, and then I became the first women's UFC champion.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Not how I expected to start my day. Well, it's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. This is great. I'm so impressed.
Oh, good.
I'm a believer.
That's the goal. That makes me so happy.
Are you sure you don't want to drink after all that?
You know, after all that, I might.
It's good to feel like understood because there's a lot of things I had to endure and experience that nobody will ever see all of it at once. People see little pieces of it. So it's nice to feel like someone understands from like the full big picture. Like I feel like only he could.